Welcome to the Hadera-Iron Partnership Together podcast. Our partnership connects communities from the Hadera-Iron region in Israel with 9 Jewish communities across the southeastern United States and the Czech Republic, planting seeds of connection that grow into lasting, meaningful relationships. This episode is produced within the L2G Local to Global program, with guests sharing personal stories and experiences, celebrating our differences while exploring the unifying foundations that build family-like bonds.
Hi, I'm Rich from Charleston.
And I'm Yasmine, also from Charleston.
I'm Itay from Israel, Pardes Chana.
Hi, my name is Avigail from Israel, Hadera.
And welcome to the Partnership Together, Hadera-Iron podcast. And today we're going to be talking about how food creates connections between people and across borders from both Israeli and American perspectives. So during this time together, we're going to delve into this topic by sharing meaningful recipes and family memories, discussing how food and shared meals can bridge geographic, cultural, and ethnic divides, and considering how food has evolved through diverse cultural influences. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to start by each going around and sharing a personal dish or recipe and perhaps an associated family memory that's meaningful to each of us. So perhaps we can go ahead and start with Abigail.
Hi, everybody. I can start with my memory about stuff that I make, and they are from my home that my mom cook. This is not the dish that I make for today, but I'm going to talk about memory from my home. My mom, she was from Europe. She was from Lita. And the food that she make was very, very simple, like a vegetable soup, very, very, very simple food. But when I grow up, I made a lot of different kind of food for my friend. The memory, it's not just from my home, it's also from the food that I ate from my friend home. My mom, she was not the best in cook. I learned by myself to cook for my home, my children. So the big memory that I have, it was the warm feeling when she made the soup at home, and the hugs, and the love that she gave us. Not just with the food, but in a different ways.
That was beautiful, Abigail. Thank you for sharing that with us. And perhaps now for an American perspective, we'll turn to Rich to give us his personal perspective.
So when most people think of Jewish life in America, they picture New York or, Brooklyn, delis, bagels, that kind of stuff. Might surprise you. It surprises almost everyone to know that Charleston, here in Charleston, where we are and where I am and where I grew up, was once home to the largest Jewish community in the United States, in North America. Sephardic Jews came over, indirectly, from Spain and Portugal. They stopped over in London and Netherlands for a generation or two, but they were here, before the U.S. was even founded. And Charleston had the largest Jewish population until all the way through the 1830s. So it was still only thousands. And obviously when New York took over, it was more like 100,000s, millions. But the Sephardic community here has been here for a long time. And this Sephardic community also, at the synagogue where we're members, KKBE, Kahal Kadash Beth Elohim, they started, it's known as the birthplace of Reform Judaism in the U.S. And it's an interesting kind of, I don't know, some people might see it as a little upside down that, we have these our culture here is Southern, these Southern Charleston, Sephardic, progressive Jews. The dish that I chose is chicken bog, which is also a very simple dish that is a kind of a mashup of a couple different cultures. So the Sephardic spin on this dish comes from arroz con pollo, and you still have it still exists. And I know Avigail and Itay have been to Barcelona, where paella is still very popular, and it sort of comes from that same ancestry. But when the Sephardic people came to Charleston, they already knew about rice. So when they got here, they met this other culture, which was the Gullah African American culture, and these were enslaved West African people who basically made Charleston the rice capital of the world and was exported everywhere. From that, the two cultures kind of meshed, and we call it kosher soul now. But kosher is a little bit metaphorical because that some of the things that we did adopt from the Gullah culture, they love to add bacon, they love to add sausage, and then also Charleston has great oysters and shrimp. So a very proper Jewish lady once, I remember saying that being Jewish here was of utmost importance, but some of these foods were too much to withstand. So it was sort of we made our way, and this chicken bog dish again, and it goes by so many different names. Some people call it purlu or pilau or pilaf. There's just so many names across the world. There's even in Israel, I know there's this Iraqi dish called tabit, and this Egyptian, Syrian dish called mujadera, which
Mejadra.
and it's a very similar thing. But for here, it's just like it just feels like a comfort food, and it's so good. It's what you always look forward to.
Yeah, I can say also that my husband make this dish every Saturday with chicken and rice together. It's called tbit.
Tabit?
That is so cool. It seems like every culture has their own chicken and rice dish. And I will say, Rich's mom's chicken bog or chicken purlu is one of my favorite things that she makes when we go to visit her. All right, Itay, maybe we can come to you for your recipe and family memory.
First of all, I have to connect with what Rich said about comfort food. At the end of it, we are all have some kind of a dish that brings us back. It might be the most simple dish ever. It might be complicated, but it's something that brings us back to being a kid, coming home. Their parents make them some kind of a recipe that they just keep on returning there years later. My grandparents came from Poland and Germany to Israel. And when they came here, they kind of decided that they want to be Israelis. They wanted to stop being Ashkenazim. So most of the food that I remember as a kid wasn't exactly Ashkenazim food. I guess it's possible to call it more Israeli food or today's Israeli food. But again, comfort food for me, bring me chicken schnitzel and puree or French fries or something like that. It's always good for me, even if it's really simple, if it's not the most complicated thing. For me, it's something that brings me home, brings me to comfort. So it's something that calms me.
Yeah, I so agree, Itay. I feel like taste and smell memories can be so powerful, and sometimes just one taste or smell can totally transport you to a different time, hopefully in a good memory. And these are all so wonderful and so diverse. Before we transition maybe to talking about some other topics, I might just share very briefly from my point of view. So I'm newer to being Jewish. I converted a couple of years ago. And one of my favorite parts of that journey has been learning about the different kinds of Jewish cuisine. It's so different, right? Depending on where you are in the world. And I think Charleston, as Rich described, certainly has a specific flavor, but we definitely have influences, from all over the world. And a newer memory for me that's connected to a food is that I love to bake. And so every Friday I've sort of come into a ritual of making challah. And It's, I think, very common for most Jewish people, but for me, it was definitely part of my journey of becoming Jewish and feeling connected to the ritual of Shabbat, and something that I do with love, for my family or for any friends that we come have, invited over. And so for me, that's very special. And sort of that smell of the yeast in the dough and sort of the smell of it baking, to me, all of those things are, very powerful memories that I think help transport me into that mindset of, coming to the end of the week and transitioning into Shabbat. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents before we wrap up. But it was wonderful hearing from everyone. Um, so now maybe we can sort of have an open discussion about different ways that we build connections through food, both between people and maybe also thinking about how we cross geographic or cultural or ethnic or even generational boundaries or barriers. So how about maybe I'll just pose some questions. I'll be hoping to get maybe both an Israeli and an American point of view. And so maybe I'll put Rich on the spot first for this first question, and then Itay and Avigail, we'll turn it over to you, and either both or either one of you can answer. So maybe first, Rich, let's think about, is there a memorable experience you could share where food might have helped bridge a cultural, ethnic, or maybe even generational gap?
Yeah, there's what comes to mind first is Charleston is called the Holy City because there's so many steeples, and so it's called the Holy City. But there's a lot of diversity, and it's so interesting to have people from other cultures come by. So each church, each place, whether it's a Buddhist place, wherever it is, they set up food for people to come by. Everybody gets a map, and they walk to each place, and they serve what is representative of them. Last year we had to do it just because it was scheduled this way. It was on Passover, so all of our stuff we had a lot of matzah. We did have matzah crack, which is very popular. I don't actually never had that in Israel, so I don't know if it exists there, but it's like a matzah. People pour like caramel and chocolate and nuts and sometimes marshmallows, and they break it up into little pieces of candy. It's just an amazing experience to see people come by and experience all these foods for the first time and realize kind of why this is special.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite yearly events as well. It's really, really neat to experience these different cultures, religious groups through the foods that they hold out to be meaningful and important. I think you can learn a lot about other people by the food that they hold out as being meaningful and important to them. Awesome. So, Itay or Abigail, is there any particular experience you might want to contribute here?
I can say about Israel and every single places like Hadera and every town, when start the 7th of October, that a lot of women and a lot of people come and cook together for the soldiers. So I think it's one of the ways that we can share love with the soldiers and the people that they have a strong day in the 7th of October. And it's a kind of way to help to other people, all the community together.
I would add, again, October 7th was quite an event that kind of shook Israel. It was a traumatic event here in Israel, and it shook everyone. Those who were soldiers or were in reserve went and joined the army the first day, but those who aren't or can't join, a lot of people try to do something that at least let them feel they can do something to help. I think cooking was a great deal. People cooked for soldiers for a long time. There were these groups that all either cooked together and donated the food, or just collecting food from those who just cooked at their home. My kitchen was very, very, very busy at those days. Both of us, my wife and I, just cooked a lot just to do something we can't do.
Absolutely. And I think it's such a good reminder, I think, of how food can be transformative in different ways, right? I think it can be such an intimate, loving act to cook for someone with an intention. And also the people on the receiving end, whether it's a soldier or perhaps a displaced family, receiving food that was cooked for them by someone else who understands what's going on and that, someone is trying to reach out to them in this way. I think it can be very special and meaningful. And I can imagine how healing it might have been both for you and the people receiving that food during that really difficult time. I know it's still a difficult time. From my perspective, I might just briefly share maybe a slightly different view on this. Again, I think my perspective might be different from all three of you, again, being a newer member of the community. But it's about a year ago. We have some very close friends who we pretty much consider to be family. It's a couple who are my and Rich's age. They have two young kids, and then the wife's parents. So we're very close with all of them. We decided to have them over for brunch. All of them. So multi-generational crew, and was trying to think of food that would be appealing to everyone, including the little ones. And so I thought, I'll make some Israeli salad and shakshuka. Everyone loves that. And it's some newer foods that I've really come to love. And then I was also thinking about this dish that my mom always cooked when I was younger. She still cooks it. So sometimes when I go home, I'll have it. It's called foul, and it's like stewed fava beans. It's a very traditional Egyptian dish. My mom is Egyptian. And so I wasn't sure if everyone would enjoy it, but I thought, maybe it kind of goes with the theme. So I made that, and I made some boiled eggs as well, because that's very traditional to have with the foul. And I was so excited to see that everyone really enjoyed it, and it sort of integrated with the other food as well. And that smell of cooking that food in my own house for, these people who I now consider to be family was really nice to kind of bring that memory from my childhood and just also see how the dish fit in with these new dishes that I've started to make. So it felt like a really nice integration, of cultures. And also, I was really thrilled that the little ones even ate it, because, little kids can be so finicky sometimes with things that are new. So just a small memory on my end. But these are some really, I think, really interesting and varied answers. Maybe this is maybe switching gears with another question. Maybe I'll come to Avigail and Itay first for this one. Is there a dish that you can think of that might have evolved as it traveled between cultures? I know your families, perhaps came from different places before settling in Israel. I don't know if there's any dishes that you have maybe that are indicative of that kind of traveling and evolution that you might want to share.
I can say that we have a lot of different kind of dish that everybody came from his home, from his culture, and we take stuff from the dish and we mix it and we make it from new beginning of the dish. So my husband, he's from Iran. So they have a lot of tasted like sour, and I didn't know this taste before. Because my mom saw, she was cook a very simple food, and this was very unique taste, and it take me time to understand the taste and the culture, because it's we came from another places in the world, and we meet here, and every person they have their own history. Every person that they came from those countries, so they have to run away for their lives. So the story at the end, they are not so good, but since they came here together, so it's make the mix of the Jewish culture together. And I just want to say also that the food that I make today for my children, it's one of the way to show my love to my children. It's a lot of culture together in our table every day, because I cook every day to my children when they come back from school. That was very important to me, that they're going to come every day and eat mommy food and not that other people are going to cook for them. And I think it's one of the way to show love. I think that they love it. And I think they are very appreciative also. And they always told me that mommy food is the best, and she make the best food. So it's make me happy.
It happens a lot here in Israel that you have people from all over the world that came here. There was one time that I worked with two women. They were sisters, and they're not Jewish. They are Druze, and they made stuffed grape leaves that has rice. So it's stuffed with rice, and I asked for the recipe. So they told me, okay, next week we'll do like we'll make it here at the kitchen at work, like a workshop, and we'll make it for everyone. So I brought the leaves, they brought the rice and the spices, and we all made it. But then another person came, and she came from Georgia, not Georgia, USA, Georgia, Georgia. She was like, no, that's not the way. Look, you should do it in another way, and change the recipe, the spices. So we had like two different kind of dishes from the same ingredients, but from different cultures. Well, today I make both of them, but you can see that for such a big difference in different countries, you have the same kind of meals, same kind of dishes that are different in taste, but the idea is still the same. Making them is something very cultural and very something that mostly the women in the family do it, and as some kind of a ritual. And I think it's something that it's really nice to see how it moves along the way.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes hearing the conversations between people who are so like they do it a certain way, and they encounter someone else who does it a certain way, and seeing what is the same and what is different. I think it's always so interesting. I've been privy to some conversations like that. Rich and I are part of a supper club, and there are a lot of older Jewish couples who participate, and everyone has their own, even within, this culture here, their own way of doing things, right? Their own way of making latkes, or their own way of making brisket. And they're very specific that this is the way it should be done, or this is the way it should be done. We once had a 30-minute conversation on whitefish salad and what makes the right whitefish salad. But it was really neat. It was really neat to hear, again, tastes have evolved, and how people have sort of, made the dish their own, and that's the way it should be. Rich, anything that you might want to add on a dish that has evolved maybe from an American perspective?
Yeah. Abigail mentioned a little bit about Iran and Persian culture. My favorite way right now to make rice, the rice that there's still a rice grown here. It's called Carolina Gold, and it's grown locally. But my favorite way to make it right now is to make it into a tadig, which is a very Persian way of making the rice. And it's so good like that. The other dish that we've had that was really good, we've been sort of experimenting making kugel in different ways. And we found when we added sort of our local sweet potatoes and mixed that into the kugel and made basically a sweet potato kugel. Sometimes they're called yams in certain places, but that was so good. And it's a mashup of so many different cultures, and we're using local ingredients and kind of Jewish history, and it's really meaningful.
Wonderful. So this has been a really wonderful, interesting, diverse discussion. It's been really neat to hear everyone's perspective, and I really appreciate everyone sharing their personal memories and recipes and experiences, especially in a time when there's so much division and polarization and conflict. It's really heartening to talk about things that bridge gaps between people, and I think food is one of those things. Food is intrinsically something that brings people together. And so perhaps before we go, we can each maybe just share a closing thought or reflection on this conversation, or perhaps even a point that we haven't gotten to?
Just a story that I'll add, if I may. As I said, my family, when my grandparents came to Israel, they wanted to be Israelis, so they kind of cut their past. So Ashkenazi food wasn't part of my childhood. But when I met my wife and my wife's family, I met her grandmother. All her life were just all she wanted, just to raise a family and give them everything she just could. She never learned how to read and write. She didn't have any job. She just raised her kids, pushed them forward and forward just to be the best they could. And she cooked a lot. And that was the tastes of all their family. One of the dishes that were very powerful and very intense, although it might sound strange, was gefilte fish. Now, gefilte fish, most of the people that knows what it is have a strange way to react. It's not very sweet. It's not very tasty. Most of the people I know doesn't understand why I like it. But I think that if you know how to make it, it tastes good, and it has a lot of history in it. So she made gefilte fish for years, twice a year, on Leila Seder and then New Year's Eve. And when she got older and older, it was hard for her to make it because she made everything by hand, and she stopped, and no one was there to fill the gap, and the recipe wasn't there because she didn't write it. It was only in her head, and no one had the courage to step in. So I took the lead, told them that I'm not her grandchild, so I let myself do it. I might fail, but it doesn't really matter. And it took me a few years to get to the right taste. And after a few years, we have the right recipe. And now she passed away 2 years ago, and still twice a year I make gefilte fish for all the family, and it's just like going back years back and have something from Savta Chaya, Grandpa Chaya.
That's so beautiful, and it's almost another way you're keeping her memory alive too by carrying on the mantle of making that recipe. But you've also made it yours, so that is really, really neat.
I haven't said anything yet about October 7th, and I think that's always in the background of everything we're talking about right now. You know, it's been a time of pain, especially for Jews in Israel, but for us in the diaspora too. There's a lot of grief, a lot of fear, sort of a sense of loneliness that's hard to put into words, sort of like we're watching the world through a slightly cracked lens. But it's conversations like this that are just really give me so much hope. And I feel like when I have conversations like this, I just feel like through all this, our future is very bright. And I'm glad that this is my family.
It's really beautiful, Rich. Abigail, can I turn to you next?
Yeah, of course. And I'm going to tell a funny story, actually, about the time that I was lived in United States, in Nevada, Las Vegas, for a year, like I told you before. So that was a Friday night, and I need to make all the dinner for the Shabbat dinner. And I will go to the Walmart, and I didn't know all the kind of pepper that you have in there. So I buy some orange small pepper that I didn't know before in Israel. And I start to make the Shabbat dinner, the traditional fish the Moroccan fish. And after we make we start to make the kiddush and everything, I start to bring the food to the table. And after they taste the fish, they start to cry because the kind of the pepper was the most spicy that they never taste before. So this is one of my memory from United States, by the way.
It's so funny. I feel like there's so many neat things about experiencing another culture through food, but also can be very dangerous things when you're not sure of the ingredients. I had many experiences like that in Barcelona, actually, myself, where I was very surprised by the thing I purchased. It was not what I thought.
I think in Barcelona, the problem in Barcelona that even if you think you understand Spanish, it's all in Catalan. So you have no way to understand what you are buying.
It's so true. And when I was living there, I was living in a dorm with a bunch of medical students, who only spoke Catalan with each other and really only wanted to speak Catalan with me and my fellow Americans, which was good for, getting us into the mindset. But the cafeteria also only had labels in Catalan. And so I ended up eating a lot of meats and other items that I wasn't expecting, like duck and rabbit, just because I didn't know the names for those things. So it was really an adventure. But I suppose in my wrapping up thought, I might tell a brief story about maybe my first introduction to the diversity of Jewish food. And this is even before I started on my conversion journey. I was still just learning about Judaism as part of getting closer to Rich and sort of deepening our relationship. And the first Pesach we spent together, it was just the two of us. We had a little Seder and we sat on the floor, which is traditional in Sephardi culture. And Rich made a huge array of dishes that I had never seen or experienced, even though I'd been to a number of Jewish events, even Seders, but more with families who were of the Ashkenazi tradition. So, I was very used to those foods. And I was just amazed at the diversity of foods, and some even that were more similar to foods I had grown up with, right? Because the roots were kind of more Middle Eastern or Mediterranean. And it was a very intimate time. And, he was cooking for me things that were important to him that he wanted to share with me and, sharing this Seder ritual together. And I just remember at that moment feeling such a connection that I hadn't really felt before to the food, to him, and to this idea of learning more about Judaism. And I always think back upon that as sort of maybe the beginning of those sparks in my mind of, maybe wanting to, sort of tie myself more closely to this culture. So that's something that always sticks out as a very special food-related memory for me. Oh my goodness, all this has been just a really wonderful, rich discussion. Thank you so much for sharing so honestly and, with vulnerability. I've really enjoyed this time together. And I do want to mention for all of you listening out there, the recipes that we've mentioned during this episode, we will include those recipes with the ingredients and the method linked in the show notes. So we hope that you'll take a look and perhaps try them out for yourself. And then finally, in closing, we'd like to thank our local Jewish Federation's Partnership Together, or P2G. It's an initiative of the Jewish Agency for Israel. It's made possible through generous gifts to your local Jewish Federation. And to learn more about P2G, please reach out to your local federation. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.